The Twins swept both ends of a split squad doubleheader in spring training. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Josh Donaldson retiring and whatever else comes to mind. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And joining me, the one, the only, Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown on the tweets. Dave, how are we doing tonight?
Hi, Brandon. Well, we're doing great. We're full of energy and vim and vinegar. Is it vim? Vin? We're full of something.
Beats me, but all I know is about something else in vinegar, and we're not going to talk about that. So thank you, though, for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. That's you listening. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a thumbs up, whatever that means to you. We would love to hear from you if you enjoy the show. And if you don't, we'd like to hear from you too. Just be kind about it. And again, so yeah, comments definitely are encouraged in the YouTube channel and all that fun stuff. Speaking of YouTube channel, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Now, for today's episode, it's brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in free bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Dave, I wanted to talk to you about the Twins sweeping both ends of would you call it sweeping both ends of a doubleheader if it's a split squad game and they're both going on at the same time?
It's that's a heck of a riddle you've posed.
Were
they playing the same team?
No. So it was the Braves on one side.
I'm sorry,
the
dream is over. No, it's not a doubleheader.
But the Braves and Orioles, two of the teams who should be the class of either of their leagues. So, I mean, again, we are all keenly aware that spring training means more or less nothing. But I don't know. I mean, it's still something to be encouraged about. They knocked around Craig Kimbrell. We'll talk about that in a bit. And in general, we'll talk about this more in a second, but I feel like the vibes are good. I watched the first episode of The Diamond, and it just reinforced my thoughts that the vibes were good. So anytime that we can keep on rolling with the idea that the vibes are good, I'm going to push that narrative, if that's okay with you.
Oh, I like to be pushed around with good vibes for sure. And I think, I haven't had a chance to see the Diamond episode, but all other indications, social media and otherwise, from the Twins clubhouse, the writers reporting in, have kind of said how good the vibes are. And I'm sure that's part of my optimism and enthusiasm and excitement about what kind of season they can have. It's been, knock on wood, people are healthy and they're performing well, and they appear to be enjoying themselves down there. So I think the season is off to as good a start. I mean, the preseason as anyone could expect or hope for.
You want to hear something terrible? I bet you do.
No. Yeah. Okay.
I did not watch a single episode of The Diamond last year. Yeah. So it got a lot of what I would call critical acclaim. I mean, there's not a lot of critics watching these videos, but the Twins pre-regular season content is always tremendous. If you've never watched the ones of Eduardo Escobar trying to remember the names of his teammates and coaches from 2017, highly recommended appointment viewing. But this first episode that I caught was terrific. You see Derek Falvey kind of explaining how eager they are to see Buxton Correa and Royce Lewis together. And, Correa doesn't have the baggage of, I didn't get the deal I wanted, which I don't know how much that actually affected him. Probably a little bit, but Buxton healthy. Lewis had not broken. He didn't break camp with the team last year because he was still recovering from the ACL. So I don't know. I mean, I think the vibes all flow from there. 3 superstar caliber players all appearing to be the best versions of themselves, to steal a phrase from what you've said a few times. I can see why the vibes are at maybe not an all-time high, but certainly as high as I can remember.
Well, I know the Twins have a good history of putting together uh, commercials and PR and that kind of thing.
Yep.
It goes back a long time. I don't know if it's the same people doing the vibes, but the Mariners had a good a good reputation for doing that. The Twins had a good reputation for doing that. So it's kind of nationally, to a degree, known how good the Twins have been at producing these things and telling their story, kind of a thing. So, but it's I am interested in watching it. And are they like webisodes where they're
like 12
these
minute
videos?
long, 13-minute long episodes, and the production value is incredible. And I don't know if that's Brace Hemmelgarn as part of that. I know he's more of a photographer, but their secondary content, I guess if you would consider content on the field, their primary content. But they have commercials dating back to like the Torrey Hunter days, where they're just Torrey Hunter shows up for a kid's birthday party and he hits the pinata and like hits a line drive through the wall or whatever, like into the wall. And then he takes the bandana off and everyone's kind of staring at him like, dude, what are you doing? And there's Johan Santana and Joe Nathan. Johan Santana keeps stopping because he's changing speeds and it's making Joe Nathan sick in the SUV they're driving. So they've had some really great brushes with creativity, but the diamond is incredible. And there's some fun stuff at the beginning. Rocco says if you come in and or dress code, if you come in and think you look good, then you're probably fine if you bust your ASS.
Yeah.
If you come in and think you look bad, we've got bigger problems than that, or something like that. Basically, he's like, yeah, you can wear whatever you want. And then Edouard Julien stands up in front of everyone, takes off like his pullover, and he's wearing a shirt with Tommy Watkins' faces all over it. And Tommy Watkins has like one of the most friendly, kind, jovial looking faces. So it really works. And I think Rocco said something like, if you hit like this guy, you can wear this shirt anytime you want. And then Tommy pipes in like, wait a second, this should be considered proper all the time. And it was, again, very indicative of the vibes as, they're coming up on, I think tomorrow they'll have their 10th spring training game. So again, I know we could look back on this and maybe it'll mean nothing, but the vibes really are immaculate. They really are.
It has to, it won't mean anything, and maybe we'll feel silly about it in the end. But it's, if they don't win, but I mean, I'm expecting them to win, so I don't think it's going to be screwed up on that point. So, but you're right, it will come down to how well they play, not how well they produce the propaganda videos. And I use that word in the nicest way possible. So, but it's what it is if they do happen to have a special season, the fans will remember those little details too, and it'll all be part of the collective memory of how cool the season was. If remember that the documentary series and spring training and all that stuff.
The lore, if you will.
Yeah, it'll be part of the fun. And if it's not, well, they didn't play well, and that's really the problem anyway. So
yeah. No, that's a good point. Let's take a quick second. I want to come back and talk to you about a former Twin retiring, a former Twin getting injured, a big one too. And of course, I don't know if we have come to a consensus on split squad doubleheader sweeps. We may have to call in a higher authority for that. But we'll come back with that. We'll come back with, again, breakdowns of those 2 wins. Brooks Lee going 2 for 3. Twins getting to Craig Kimbrell and much, much more. But first, some love for our new friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is North America's largest daily fantasy sports platform. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just like you. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, you pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And the app has this new fun feature. This to me is extremely intriguing because it's like nothing I've seen anywhere else before. But demons and goblins. Demon picks are marked in red, and they're the scary picks that accelerate your heartbeat because you can win big money, like 100 times your money. So if you bet $10, you can win 1,000. But if you're more cautious, if you play it more close to the vest like Dave Brown and me, you can always choose a goblin pick marked green because it's designed to keep you in the green and allow you to land consistent victories. The payout is less than a demon pick, but your chances of keeping your streak going are higher. Basically, it's the name of the game, and it's an absolutely beautiful system. I can't recommend enough that you run out there and check it out. If you're into the NBA, like I have really become in the last couple years, you can pick up more than or less, or pick more than or less than on everything from 3-pointers made to turnovers committed. And for spring training baseball, you can pick more than or less than on pitcher strikeouts, first inning runs, and anything else your heart desires. So download the app today and enter code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's $100 with the code LOCKEDONMLB. It's all one word, all lowercase, and you can get that first deposit matched up to a Benjamin. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay, well, Dave, let's talk about a 7-2 victory against the Orioles. Trying to remember, because off the top of my head, I can never remember if the Orioles are in Sarasota. Yep, Sarasota. Yes. Okay. So they were in Sarasota. Orioles off to actually a pretty strong start, but Twins jumped them for seven runs before the Orioles pushed across a couple late. An offensive flurry here. Brooksley 2 for 3, Royce Lewis 2 for 2. Jair Camargo, one of the catchers vying for backup time, goes 2 for 3 as well. Just a great offensive performance against a team where the pitching should be good, but there will certainly be a question mark with Kyle Bradish starting the season on the sidelines. Now, again, Corbin Burns fixes a lot of the things that could ail you. And then pitching-wise, Bo Burrows, who has about the same chance as you and me of making the roster, and that's no disrespect to him. Or maybe it is. I don't know. He walked 4. What's that?
It is a little bit of a disrespect to him when you put it.
He walked 4 2/3 of an inning and gave up the only 2 runs the Twins gave up. He did that while Scott Blewett pitched 2 scoreless innings. It's almost like they had a Freaky Friday inception sort of thing. But scoreless outings from Cole Sands, Cody Funder down under, Josh Stalmont, Steven Okert, Mr. Blewett, Caleb Bushley, and then a man by the name of Anthony Labas, who I do not know a terribly lot about. So Twins get to Dean Kramer for 2 runs in the first 2 innings, and then a big 4 spot off Kimbrel. Kimbrel, 5 hits, a strikeout, but he gave up just a massive home run to
Emmanuel.
I almost wanted to say Eduardo Rodriguez, and that's not him. Emmanuel Rodriguez. And reading between the lines as I get really long-winded here, it looked to me like Kimbrel may not have been keen on the post-homer, I don't even want to call it antics. He just watched it a little bit. But I wonder if there's not going to be, Kimbrel remembering something a year down the line when they face each other and hitting him with it. I hate that my baseball mind goes there, but I definitely wonder.
Well, it was the first thing I thought of. I'm like, oh, he's not going to like that bat drop and that stare of the. It was like a mid-season form on the. I don't know. I want to call it the trot, but the pre-trot anyway. And when you get the pre-trots, you got to hurry up and get to you got to take care of that before it gets messy.
It's like the first, when you're not supposed to go in the water for an hour after you eat.
Right.
That first hour after you eat, if it's like Taco Bell or like White Castle, that's the pre-trot.
Right. But it was an absolutely effortless, beautiful, perfect swing. I just noticed how clean it was. I think that's the word I used on my tweet when I saw it by Rodriguez. It was just it was a thing of beauty for a 20-year-old kid. And Kimbrel is a guy who he's just getting in the shape of things. It's not, I wouldn't like put too much credence into, oh, they beat Craig Kimbrel for 5 runs.
Right.
That's a dime a dozen or 12 for 10 cents anyway.
To be clear, I'm not doing that either.
No, I know you're not.
Okay.
I was talking to the people out there who might be doing it. I'm not. I'm just saying, don't get too excited about that aspect of it. But it was still a beautiful swing, and
Yep.
I would say absolutely, he's not going to forget the home run trot, and someday he's going to buzz the young man up and in. And I say that like I kind of admire it. I don't necessarily, because throwing at people can be dangerous and
Yep.
shouldn't be done, but it happens. And I can see where maybe he will have to, young Emmanuel, Erod or Emrod will have to answer for that someday.
I can't get down with Emrod. Like, I know there's Erods for days. Like, I know that's not a unique nickname, but I cannot get down with Emrod. I can't do it. I'm sorry. It reminds me too much of Car Ramrod, if you're familiar with that reference.
I don't know what that reference is.
Oh, it's Super Troopers, Car Ramrod from back in like early 2000s.
Seen parts of Super Troopers. It seems like the kind of thing that I would watch, but
Yep.
I've only seen it in small doses.
Well, that's perfectly fine. Brooks Lee with a couple of hits. Again, I know the odds of him making the team are virtually nil coming out of spring training, but hard to not be encouraged. All of his swings and contact look clean. Like, again, it's not, he's not driving the crap out of the ball like Emmanuel Rodriguez did, but it's clean knocks all over the field. And again, I know like the scouting report on him is not a standout tool. He's not going to hit 35 bombs or hit 325 or anything, but he's just so steady that I feel like he's going to come up and just be a solid player from the jump whenever that is.
Does a lot of things well. And I think about some players in the major leagues who aren't necessarily like, oh, these are great prospects, but they turn into very solid major league players who maybe don't get the hype in the beginning, but they are still valuable nonetheless. You don't have to have that absolutely awesome pedigree to be a decent, helpful major league player. And I think, a little more, it's the Twins don't need him to come up on opening day at this time.
Right.
We have Eduard and we have Farmer at second base, and Willie Castro, I guess, can play there too. They're covered at second base for now. So it's going to take some kind of, calamity for the need to arise for Brooks Lee in the early part of the season. But I think it's okay that he gets a few more at bats at St. Paul before he comes up.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's not as though he lit that league on fire either. Pablo Lopez over on the other side of things in Fort Myers gives up a couple earned in 3 innings. Again, he's just kind of going through a few different things. It sounds like he's trying to work on all of his pitches to all of his quadrants and just get that all lined up, which again is a good thing. Scoreless appearances from Griffin Jacks, Brock Stewart, and then a 2-inning save, if there is such a thing in the spring, with from Hobie Harris. But another fun name to say, and I wanted to say it, even though he's 32, not going to make the team, whatever. But Joe Gunkel had 2 shutout innings as well. How fun is it to say the name Joe Gunkel?
That is, and it's hard to explain, but I feel like that is a perfect Twins name. Maybe more for the 90s or the O's, the zeros,
the aughts.
Today, but the noughts, the aughts, the bots.
Oh, the knots is probably a good
brats.
You say
but
brats?
That's a classic. Oh yeah, remember when Joe Gunkel came up, and it's I hope he gets a chance just so we can say that. It's I'm not expecting the world, but it would be fun to have that name in the major leagues register.
Oh, I'm totally going to put it down. I will buy a Joe Gunkel game used jersey if he pitches at all in the big leagues this year.
Now, if that's a Fanatics, is that going to run you like $7,000 because the price has gone up so much?
Probably. And so it's a risk I have to be willing to take. And I know what I risked. Let's talk about FanDuel. We'll come back. We'll hit the home stretch. We got some Scott Boras stuff. The Twins doing question of the day, which are a lot of fun. And Josh Donaldson retired. So we'll talk about him for a split second as well. But yeah, first a word from FanDuel. You can be like the Timberwolves and get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And if you're a Wolves fan, make sure you're checking out Locked On Wolves with Ben Beacon, by the way. A little free love for our friend Ben. But right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So any $5 bet, like the Wolves beating Portland, which should have been a pretty easy bet, was a little closer, maybe a little too close for comfort with some guys getting off to slow starts. But that could be your winning $5 bet, which gives you $150 in bonus bets. Basically free play if your bet wins. So you can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams. There's quick bets, live, same game parlays, exclusive props. And every single show I say that there's so many other options that I couldn't possibly tell you them all. Well, guess what? In the last 23 and a half hours, that hasn't changed. So again, make sure you check out FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. Also the FanDuel app. I mean, again, it's so easy. It's almost too easy to sit on your phone and just check out all these different options. But again, $5, a winning $5 bet to start things off, and you get $150 in bonus bets. It's an absolutely tremendous deal. But again, you can only do it at FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NBA. Dave Brown, the news this morning was that Scott Boras said 4 new teams have expressed interest in his pitching clients. My question is, do you believe him? Because here's the deal. He's already taken a pretty big hit this winter with Matt Chapman taking a shorter deal, Cody Bellinger taking a shorter deal. And I think he runs the risk of kind of being, I don't know, made look even worse if he says all these teams are interested and it's still another week or 10 days before these guys sign. I don't know. I guess I don't know how much I believe him at this point when he says that multiple teams have jumped in and are now interested in his guys.
Yeah, it would kind of be like how he's in a slump or something, an agent slump, if that's true. I mean, I guess there's a way to verify that. Some reporters can do that. Do I believe him? I mean, maybe to some degree. I think here's the thing about that. There should be 4 teams that are interested in these guys, especially.
At least.
Yes. I mean, there should be 14 teams, probably 30.
Yep.
Multiple. More than 4. So actually, do I believe it? Yeah, I believe it. It's just because there probably should be, at least 3 times that many teams that are putting in bids, especially with the news that Snell is willing to take a cut a little bit, and in terms of length of the deal and security in that way. So, I mean, there should be lots of interest in those guys, at least talking. I mean, teams should be going up to Boras and saying, maybe trying to short the players a little bit even, and trying to take advantage of the situation and negotiate in that way. Hey, we're interested if you want to do $25 million a year with 3 opt-outs or 6 opt-outs. So, yeah, I think I don't have a problem thinking that there's 4 teams interested in these guys for that reason. I think, I don't know that Montgomery should be, I don't know. Bellinger, like I said before, Bellinger was a guy who 2 years ago had an extended problem with his shoulder, an injury that was keeping him down. This past year with the Cubs, he hit well, but his underlying numbers showed that maybe he was a little lucky to do that. He wasn't hitting the ball hard enough.
Right.
These guys, Jordan Montgomery hasn't been like he's been doubted everywhere he's gone, but he's kind of produced too. And Snell, while he does walk too many guys and is kind of annoying in that way, has 2 Cy Youngs. I mean, given the long history of free agency, these are guys that would have been signed for $100 million by now in normal times. So, this is definitely a soft market for one reason or another. And, I don't know how long you wait if you're one of those guys. I mean, eventually you want to get on a team, but it is now basically 3.5 weeks until opening day. So you better
Right.
hurry up.
Well, yeah, especially because as pitchers, they're going to need time to lengthen out. So, I mean, at this
Yeah.
point, getting them to 5 innings and 75 pitches or 80 pitches is going to be not impossible, but a challenge. I feel like the 4 teams interested, 4 seems like a safe number where you're not being outlandish, but you're also not selling it short. I don't know. And I just want to read one thing he said that was in an article today on ESPN. There's a pitching panic going on in baseball. We've got so many starting pitchers now who are compromised, maybe short term, maybe long term. And the calls for starters, elite starters, are starting to increase with many clubs right now because of the pitching issue. The competitiveness of their seasons is at risk. I'm a person who likes when Scott Boras kind of holds court at the winter meetings, but to me, he said a lot of nothing with those 2 quasi paragraphs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I've complained myself before about how people uh, complain about the state of pitching, and why don't we have guys that can go 6 innings anymore? And here's a couple guys that do that. At least Montgomery does. Maybe Snell only goes 5, but what? At some point, what can you say anymore if you're Boris? You're even he, with his colorful metaphors and whatnot and analogies, he's just kind of running out of things to say. And you look at how his clients have fared this year, and it's definitely a mixed bag at best. And it's framed by some reports that like Matt Chapman is betting on himself by taking the shorter deal, and I think that's just. I mean, he's already bet on himself. He's become a free agent, and somebody mentioned this on Twitter that you know the key maybe for Tony Clark and the MLBPA is to uh, reinvigorate themselves into getting more out of the first 4 or 5 years of a player's career. The owners really have the players over a barrel as far as that goes, and now they've got them over a barrel apparently with free agency. So it's salary oppression is a real thing, and or salary suppression, I guess, not oppression. But so I mean, I don't know if free agency can be fixed, but I think the players can do a better job holding out for better terms earlier in someone's career.
It could definitely be better. There's no question about that. Sonny Gray comes up with a hamstring issue. Any issue now definitely puts opening day in question. And by now, I mean, I guess they've only been playing games for like 10, 12 days. So it's not like any issue in spring is problematic. So to that extent, I mean, if you're the Cardinals and you have put a lot of resources, not just Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, um, Kyle Gibson, like they have gone out and gotten, they've revamped that entire rotation, but the linchpin, the pivot point, the main attraction is Sonny Gray, and he's now dinged up a bit. I hope it doesn't linger because all we want as Twins folks is good things for Sonny. He did exactly what the Twins could have wanted him to do, but man, this timing stinks.
No, it does. It's you want to get off to a good start just because you kind of always run the risk when you start off injured of trying to come back, trying to hedge your bets and trying to come back too early, and then that leads to some other injury down the line or kind of a half measure performance. And so it's kind of a dangerous time to be hurt in that respect. You don't you want to catch up and start the season. You have to remember it's always a marathon.
Yep.
Even if you start late, it's still going to be a haul until we get to the end. So you don't want to try and overcome the world here because of a hamstring. It's something that can it's obnoxious because it can linger, and you need that lower half as a pitcher to be healthy. It's not an arm injury, so it's good news from that standpoint. You just have to be patient with it. The Cardinals, you mentioned Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. I I don't know. I kind of look at those moves as half measures on their part.
Yep.
And the reason that the Sonny Gray injury can be described as potentially troubling is because they didn't put more resources into either the starting rotation or back into their lineup. They're relying on a lot of pieces that they had last year that didn't go well to have better years. And, they sort of had a season that was kind of like the Twins in some ways. Lots of things went wrong. And but they really went wrong. So, I don't know if the Cardinals are in a particularly advantageous position right now. I think Sonny Gray, not having him healthy, at least for the start of the season, is kind of a bad omen. And I don't know if they have enough good guys to overcome a thing like that if it becomes something that lingers.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they added all those pitchers in the first place says a lot. Quickly, as we wrap here, Josh Donaldson announces his retirement. What was your favorite Josh Donaldson moment? I got one.
Yeah, you go first.
This one right here.
People are bitter. Josh Donaldson, my favorite Josh Donaldson moment, actually, it wasn't his fault, really. It was a diving attempt on a Sal Perez line drive down the line in the in the wild card game in 2014 or whatever that was. And it was that was a fun moment for the Royals. Josh Donaldson, really a great player, actually, and an excellent defensive player and a very good hitter for a third baseman.
And a great developmental story.
Yes, didn't happen immediately. Didn't get going until he was 26, 27. Sort of like I think he won't get a lot of votes like David Wright didn't, but maybe he'll linger on an all-star and a Hall of Fame ballot for a few years.
Hey, well, hey, that's all we have time for. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is Locked On Twins, and we'll see you tomorrow night.